I sit in chains upon a makeshift throne of tarnished iron and watch as my brothers die one by one. Anselm is the last to enter the arena. He staggers forward on broken legs, his hands mag-shackled before him, the left side of his face reduced to a meat-raw ruin by a traitor's chain blade. His armor has been stripped from him, and he wears only a blood-stained breechclout. Cruel marks of excruciation mar his exposed flesh, each livid defilement a unique blasphemy in its own right. A hulking Iron Warrior clad in archaic warplate follows in his wake, lashing the Space Marine's back and shoulders with a barbed chain flail, roaring out hateful curses and denunciations through his helmet's vox amplifiers as he drives the captive Imperial fist before him like a beaten beast. At the sight of the new arrivals, the motley assemblage of cultist thralls, renegade guardsmen and ship ratings thronging the chamber's viewing terraces erupt in a bedlam of frenzied howls and cheers, giving unrestrained voice to their insatiable bloodlust. This is what our once loyal cousins have reduced us to. Playthings, combat slaves, arena fodder. This is how our foes intend to see us broken if our wills and spirits prove unequal to the challenge. They will not succeed. My task force might have been defeated, our strike cruiser boarded and overrun, our mortal servants slain or enslaved, our war gear and relics plundered, yet as long as the hearts of one loyal son of Rogel Dawn continue to beat, the Iron Warrior's victory will never be fully realized. The corrupted warsmith who leads the warband knows this, and at his orders the deaths of my men have been made into a spectacle, a source of mockery and savage entertainment. It has changed nothing. Our honor and our loyalty have remained unbroken, even as the inviolable will of our Primarch remained unbroken throughout the dark days of the Siege of Terror. This is our siege, our last and greatest trial, and we shall not be found wanting in the Emperor's sight.
Show some respect and kneel before your commander,
the Iron Warrior snarls, coiling the flail about Anselm's injured legs and forcing him to his knees in the gore-soaked sand beside the limbless body of Apothecary Edward. I cannot come to his aid, cannot defend him in any way against his captor's cruelties. They have brought him here before me, so that I might bear witness to his death. With blood still weeping from his unhealed wounds, Anselm raises his ruined face and regards me with his one good eye. Despite the pain, there is no hint of despair, regret, or accusation in his steadfast gaze.
Well met, Brother Lieutenant Helmrich.
He greets me stoically, bringing a fist to his chest in salute. I strive to keep my face as impassive as stone, my grief and rage locked behind steel-hard bars of mental fortitude. Fight well, Brother Anselm, for the Primarch progenitor and the glory of him on earth. Anselm bows his head in acknowledgement. The Iron Warrior jailer brandishes the bloodied chain flail up at me.
Such stirring oratory, Lieutenant,
he sneers. His voxmit is incapable of masking his scorn.
Perhaps if you had set a more inspiring example, your men might have put up a stiffer resistance when we boarded your ship. Surely this brother of yours merits a bit more encouragement, considering the torments he has endured for the sake of his fealty.
Turning, he strikes Anselm viciously across the back once more, eliciting a shudder of pain from the kneeling fist.
Perhaps you should honor his sufferings with the truth. Tell him he will not fight well. Tell him he is going to die like a dog, in the dirt, while his enemies look on and rejoice. Tell him there is no hope. Tell him his beloved Emperor is a withered corpse, propped upon a throne of lies. Tell him...
Kill the traitor, I tell Anselm, leaning forwards as far as the warp-forged adamantium chains binding me in place will allow. I grow weary of his treasonous prattle. Anselm is moving before I have finished speaking. Either he has exaggerated the crippling effects of his injuries, or else his torturers had overestimated the extent of the damage they had inflicted. Although his hands are bound, he still manages to rip the flail from the Iron Warrior's grip and slam the handle into his helm with enough force to dent his faceplate and crack both eye lenses. The crowd roars, thrilled by the unexpected outbreak of violence. Caught off guard, the Iron Warrior reels back, then swiftly retaliates with all the merciless brutality of his accursed legion. Scorning the use of his weapons, the traitor Marine hammers Anselm into submission with his gauntleted fists in a relentless barrage of pile-driving blows. Soon Anselm is driven to his knees once more, his surge of defiant strength beaten down by the Iron Warrior's ruthless counter-assault. Recovering the chain flail, the traitor Marine steps away from the Imperial fist, depressing a hidden rune on his vambrace and causing Anselm's shackles to snap open, freeing his hands. Then he takes hold of the Thunder Hammer maglock to his thigh plate and casts the weapon down before the subdued Astartes.
"That was a foolish gambit, Lieutenant,"
he says to me, his eyes never once leaving his prone captive.
"We all know how this is going to end. Even if he had managed to slay me, it would have changed nothing. You merely ensured what little strength he still possessed was squandered, attempting to obey a pointless order he had no hope of carrying out."
Anselm tries to speak again, but can only spit a mouthful of blood and shattered teeth into the sand. With a snort of contempt, the Iron Warrior kicks him in the side and strides from the arena. The crowd's excitement rises to a fever pitch of anticipation. The true entertainment is about to begin. "Get up, brother," I command, willing him to rise, furious at the thought of him dying on his knees. "Get up now." Another shudder of agony passes through Anselm's brutalized body as he reaches out and closes a hand about the shaft of the discarded Thunder Hammer. Rising to his feet, the blood-drenched Imperial fist turns to face the entryway opposite the one he had been driven through as the battered adamantium gates begin to slide open with a groan of ill-maintained gears. From within the impregnable darkness beyond, 8 baleful red eyes flicker to life. The crowd knows what is coming. "Corpse render!" The degenerate humans roar in unified jubilation. "Corpse render!" At my side, Derlanoth chuckles in dark amusement.
"I doubt he will last as long as your apothecary did. What do you say, Helmrich? If you wagered upon his victory, what odds would you deign to give him?"
I say nothing, refusing to acknowledge the warsmith's presence or his words as I have done since my capture. Undeterred by my silence, the Iron Warrior Chaos Lord lays a gauntlet upon my pauldron in a brotherly fashion, as if we are comrades in arms, observing a sanctioned honor duel between 2 well-matched combatants. The cloying miasmic stench of his warp-tainted form twists my stomach, and I must fight down the urge to vomit. He speaks to me as if to a trusted friend, all the while savoring my impotent hatred like a fine wine. Still defiant, I pay him no heed, striving to keep my whole attention focused upon my sole surviving brother. "Corpse render!" The crowd roars again in worshipful exultation as the serpentine demon engine surges into the arena, its scores of multi-jointed mechanical legs kicking up sprays of sand, its long, segmented form undulating from side to side as it charges towards Anselm. Its overlapping scaled armor glows with an orange-red furnace light, and along its back bristle a line of spear spikes upon which the still-living bodies of human sacrifices have been impaled. The head of the Thunder Hammer flares blue-white as Anselm activates the disruptor field. Shame fills my heart as I gaze down at the last Imperial fist of my task force, condemned to die alone and forsaken, while I sit watching from the sidelines like an indolent noble at a banquet. For one fateful moment, my composure cracks as the true magnitude of the defeat brought about by my failure to prevent the Iron Warriors from seizing our ship is now laid bare in all its fullness. "Forgive me, Anselm!" I cry, straining against the chains with all my strength. I am still fully armored with the exception of my helm, and apart from the superficial wounds I sustained during the boarding action, I have been otherwise left unharmed by my captors.
What's this, Helmrich? Forgiveness. You seek your brother's forgiveness.
Derlanoth's hand leaves my shoulder and grips my chin, forcing my gaze away from the spectacle of doomed defiance unfolding below. My skin blisters under his searing touch. Each ceramide plate of the warsmith's ancient armor is encased in an opaque sheen of otherworldly fire, as if the legionary within has become a living beacon of spite made manifest. Warp flames crown his helmet in an inferno halo, and burn like hellish watchfires behind his eye lenses. Chaos has consumed him, both within and without. Snarling, I curse the name of his Primarch and wrench my head free, not wanting Anselm's death to be witnessed by his foes alone. Derlanoth strikes me across the face in retaliation, and I slump in my bonds, my flesh scorched, stunned into near senselessness by the blow.
There shall be no forgiveness, you pompous Praetorian,
the warsmith growls.
Not for you, nor for me. Do you think I ordered your men thrown into this hellpit to be torn apart for the mere entertainment of my slaves and lackeys? There is a lesson in this, Helmrich. A lesson the Imperial Fists never learned as a legion during the days of the Great Crusade, when they basked without shame in the light of the false Emperor's favor. Showered with undeserved honors and plaudits and the collective acclaim of a star-spanning empire, while the Iron Warriors toiled and fought in thankless obscurity, our bitter sacrifices and hard-won victories unrecognized and unhonored, a lesson only the broken can learn.
Still refusing to respond, I watch as the demon engine begins circling around Anselm like a starving wolf prowling about the guttering campfire of a lost wayfarer. 6 sinuous flesh cables have burst out along the corpse-render's sides, each whipping tentacle-like appendage ending in a spread of 4 steel claws akin to the curved talons of a raptor. The demon engine's chrome-smooth head is a grotesque melding of canine and equine, its elongated horse face hinged with massive wolfish jaws crammed with dripping oil-slick fangs. From the center of its forehead protrudes a single spiral horn of dark adamantium. Fearless and unyielding, Anselm turns in place as the chaotic war construct circles, the thunder hammer a lightning-wreathed blur as he smashes aside the twisting cables as the claws slash and jab at his legs and throat. Each deflective strike accompanied by a flash of coruscating discharge that lights up the floor of the arena, causing the corpses of the 37 Imperial Fists who have already been slaughtered to stand out in stark relief against the sand. For the sake of the crowd, the corpse render is compelled to toy with Anselm, instead of crushing him outright under its superior bulk or devouring him with its monstrous jaws. In the arena, such swift and decisive actions would bring a premature end to the entertainment, halting Anselm's torment too soon and leaving the onlookers unsatisfied.
Your legion never learned what it means to be broken,
Derlanoth continues as he strides to the railing and looks out, his black chainmail cloak shrouded in sheets of shimmering flame.
Its warriors have never fought and died under the pitiless, exacting regard of a cold and distant gene-sire. Their hands forever stained with the blood of the brothers they were ordered to decimate as punishment for their failings. Whereas other legions such as the Blood Angels, the Emperor's children, the Thousand Sons, and the Ultramarines rose from strength to strength under the wisdom and guidance of their Primarchs. The legionaries of the Fourth crusaded and conquered in vain, knowing none of our accomplishments would ever satisfy the Lord of Iron. Now it is the turn of the Imperial Fists to partake in the same futility of action. Now the time has come for the dogs of dawn to be broken.
Below, Anselm suddenly stumbles. From exhaustion or pain, I cannot tell, and his next blow fails to make contact. The wild swing leaving him overextended, his guard open for a fraction of a second. It is all the opportunity the demon engine needs. A claw hand clamps shut about his right leg, and with a single flex of its tentacle arm, the corpse render jerks the Space Marine off the ground and pitches him high into the air. The crowd bellows in approval. Anselm slams hard into the sand with an audible snapping of bone and somehow manages to roll to a halt, fetching up against the eviscerated corpse of Brother Sergeant Gustav. He makes no immediate attempt to rise. "Anselm!" I shout, fury boiling through my veins as all restraint collapses. "On your feet! Get up! Now, brother! Do it now!" Before Anselm can recover, the corpse render rushes him. Two of its arms snake out ahead of it, seizing the Astartes by the ankles and lifting him into the air once more. Again and again he is hurled across the arena like a rag doll. Finally, as if tiring of the sport, the demon engine powers forward and slams him bodily into the arena's rockcrete wall 8 times in rapid succession. The thunderhammer falls from Anselm's grasp, its shaft shattered in 2, and his struggles cease. Raising the Space Marine above its horned head like a battle trophy, the corpse render approaches the terrace Derlanoth and I occupy. Anselm's head is lolling, his face a crimson mask of blood. With a half-organic, half-mechanical roar of triumph, the corpse render presents the Imperial fist to the warsmith, like a loyal retainer presenting his sword to his liege lord after a successful duel. Derlanoth looks back at me, the translucent warp flames playing along his battle plate cavorting in obscene patterns as if in celebration. Sweeping out a fire-licked hand, the Chaos Lord gestures imperiously at the bloodied offering his servant has brought before him.
Behold your brother.
Anselm's lone eye is still open, yet it is devoid of all awareness or comprehension. Each ragged breath is more labored than the last, and I can see the bone white of his skull showing through the deep lacerations scoring his shaved scalp. Hanging limp and unresisting by his wrists and ankles in the demon engine's taloned grip, his broken body displayed for all to see, Anselm is no longer an Astartes. No longer a valiant, stalwart scion of the Emperor's Praetorian, only a ruined jumble of torn meat and crushed bone, with no identity and no purpose left to serve. Nothing but a broken, worthless weapon. Then the corpse render thrusts its head upwards and impales the Imperial fist through the back and chest upon its spiraled horn. Anselm screams, a mindless, animal scream of unspeakable pain. Blood bursts from its mouth, and its body convulses. Lowering its head, the corpse render bows before the warsmith. Then, with a contemptuous flick of its horn, it sends Anselm tumbling to the arena floor for a final time. Its task fulfilled, the demon-possessed war machine withdraws back to its lightless holding pen, retreating backwards on its multi-jointed legs, leaving Anselm still alive to thrash and scream on the floor like a gutted grox. The adamantium gates rumble shut. The crowd has risen to its feet, baying in lunatic fervor. I sit like a statue upon my false throne, the fortress of my resolve crumbling to dust within me. And when the chains restraining me go slack, I am almost unaware of the change. Derlanoth returns to my side, laying a gauntlet upon my pauldron once more as if to console me.
Go to him, Helmrich. Go to your brother. No true warrior of Rogel Dawn's gene line should be screaming in such a way. Go. Perhaps he still might be willing to grant you forgiveness.
I stand, the chains falling from my limbs. I take a step and the warsmith does not cut me down. In silence, I descend downwards through the inner passageways behind the viewing terraces. No human or traitor marine hinders my path. Even through the walls, I can still hear Anselm screaming, as if his very soul is being violated over and over. Derlanoth follows behind at a distance. When I reach one of the main entryways leading into the arena, the iron-masked mutant gatekeepers allow me to pass through unchallenged. As I walk across the blood-stained sand, heedless of the noisome crowd, I pass by the Imperial fists of my strike force. None of the bodies are intact. Most have been decapitated, dismembered or disemboweled. Others are strewn about in gore-wet chunks. Only Anselm still lives. "Brother." The words wither in my mouth as I draw closer. Anselm is lying on his back, his bare heels drumming against the sand, tossing his head from side to side as he claws at the gaping hole in his chest in a frenzy. His screams devolving into harsh, guttural roars and bestial snarls. Instead of blood, a foul, ink-black ichor oozes from the wound. Horror arises within me as I see questing tendrils of the same dark substance spreading out beneath his skin as it floods through his veins. The corpse render's twisted horn had been coated in some vile warp-brewed poison that is overpowering and contaminating his transhuman physiology from within, tainting body and mind alike as it rampages unchecked through his nervous system. I know what must be done. There will be no last words exchanged between us. No benedictions offered to the fallen. No chance to receive forgiveness. There is only the cold, calculating logic of necessity pointing to the one and only appropriate action left for me to take. I drop to one knee beside Anselm. Red froth flecks his gnashing jaws. Glistening fangs sprout from bleeding gums. His remaining eye has turned as black as the starless void. He snarls at me, spitting a vicious stream of nonsensical gibberish, and although I cannot understand the words, I know he is cursing me. Bending down, I take his head in my armored hands, preparing to break his neck. "Forgive me, brother." He heaves against me, forcing himself into a sitting position with a burst of newfound strength. Gripping my wrists, he rips away my hands, the claws pushing out from his fingertips, piercing through my vambraces and digging into my arms. Mouth agape, the thing that had once been Anselm lunges for my throat, its nascent fangs snapping. I surge to my feet, inadvertently pulling the mutating Space Marine upright with me as I rise, its claws still hooked in the flesh of my forearms. With an inhuman shriek, it clenches its hands and I feel my wrist bones splintering like matchsticks under the buckling ceramite. Desperate, I thrust out both arms in an attempt to maintain some distance between us. The Anselm thing is growing taller, swelling with malice and muscle, its bulk rapidly exceeding the limits of baseline Astartes physiology. Black ichor is still seeping from the tainted wound in its chest. I cannot break free from its hold, and it begins to pull me towards it. My servos whine in protest as I resist, pitting my armor-augmented strength against its chaos-infused might. Abruptly it switches tactics and releases me, and I stagger back, the bones in my wrists all but crushed. Growling and licking its blunt, ursine jaws, the corrupted Imperial fist crouches down on all fours, dragging its lengthening claws through the sand, the muscles of its naked thighs bunching as it readies itself to spring. My once brother will bear me to the ground as if I am nothing more than mere prey. It will tear me open with claw and fang and feast upon my enhanced organs even as I die. I do not need the prescience of a librarian to know how the attack will play out. Whether I stand or flee makes no difference. I want to fall to my knees in despair, yet such an act is anathema to a son of dawn. Instead, I lock my gaze with the monster's darkened eye and raise my clenched fists in challenge, daring it to spring.
Why do you allow his suffering to continue, Helmrich?
I do not wonder how Derlanoth has managed to approach us undetected. The warsmith strides past me without a glance, his pace unhurried, and comes to a halt before the creature, scrutinizing its mutated features with genuine interest. The abomination makes no hostile move against the traitor marine, not even when Derlanoth places a grey-mailed hand upon its quivering horse-like neck and begins to stroke it. Instead of attacking, the beast flinches at the Chaos Lord's touch and emits a low, anguished, keening sound. Derlanoth turns and faces me, reaching backwards to retrieve the long sword slung across his power pack. The hellfires flickering behind his helm's eye lenses seem to flare brighter with some unholy mirth, as he drives the power blade point first into the sand between us, until it protrudes from the arena floor like a grave marker. Raw, untempered rage kindles in my hearts at the sight of the weapon. The warsmith had wielded the longsword with deadly effect during the seizure of our strike cruiser, cutting Chaplain Moorholt in half and beheading both veteran Sergeant Kulnoff and Brother Garm with a single swing. Though it is plain and unassuming to look upon, it is steeped in the blood of my brothers and countless other innocents. The mere thought of touching it disgusts me.
You still have one final duty to fulfill, Lieutenant,
Derlanoth says as he retreats to one side, allowing the beast and I to face each other once more.
Anselm is lost to you forever, yet there still exists within the shell of his mind a torn and tattered remnant of his soul, still rational, still self-aware, subsumed deep within his transfigured flesh. A fragment of your brother is still screaming, Helmrich, and it will keep on screaming for all eternity if you do not kill him. Otherwise he will kill you, and become one of the countless war slaves serving the will of the Iron Warriors in battle and in sport. Will you allow the last Imperial fist of your command to suffer such a fate? You shall have but one chance to grant him the release of death before you die.
The thing that is and is not Anselm throws back its head, howling in hatred and agony. Its bloated muscles flex as it leaps. Airborne, the creature descends upon me, fangs gleaming, claws outspread. I charge forward to meet its embrace, catching up Derlanoth's longsword in a double-handed grip and raising it just as the beast makes contact. For a second time it is impaled, the blade plunging deep into the fleshy junction where neck joins with chest. The beast lands, its crushing weight driving me to my knees. The Anselm thing howls again and rears backwards, pulling itself free from the sword, dark, ichor-tainted blood spraying from the wound. In an instant, the chaos-saturated flesh begins to re-knit, the damage healing with impossible speed. I regain my feet a heartbeat later, and we come together again, and then again. There is no time. There is no past or future. There is no warsmith. There is no Anselm. There is no chapter, no emperor, no imperium. There is only the claws and the jaws and the teeth, and above all, the enemy blade that is keeping them from ending me moment by moment. I am so immersed in the present struggle, I have become blind to all other outside realities. The warsmith's long sword hacks chunks of dense muscle from the creature's outsized frame. In return, its claws tear into my armor and flesh, sending pieces of ceramite shearing away. We bleed and rage and roar, and in the crucible of combat we forget everything and desire nothing except death and death alone. I have never hated as I now hate. I have never fought as I now fight. I have never bled as I now bleed. I have never died as I now die. Suddenly I stumble. From exhaustion or pain I cannot tell, and my strike does not land where I had intended it to land. For a moment my guard is open, and the Anselm thing wastes no time. It barrels forward, its bearish head lowered, and before I can raise the long sword again, its heavy jaws hinge wide and close about my right pauldron. clamping down with a hideous strength that cracks ceramite and crushes bone alike with sickening ease. Rearing upright, its claws raking down my sides deep enough to gouge my fused ribs, the beast begins jerking and shaking me, biting still deeper, and I feel servos, muscles, and tendons ripping and parting one after another as my entire arm and shoulder is inexorably torn from my body. Yet even as flesh and armor separate, the long sword is already falling in an arcing, overhanded swing that sends the blade slicing deep into the creature's neck. Its ichor-smeared bulk judders at the impact, and it staggers away, leaving my arm and shoulder laying on the sand in a pool of crimson. Pushing through the pain, I lurch after it, gouts of bright blood jetting from the devastating wound, determined to put an end to Anselm's misery before the shock and blood loss take their toll. For all the formidable regenerative capabilities it possesses, it is now the beast's turn to stumble. It is all the opportunity I need. I have never killed a brother before. I tell myself there is no other choice. With a final desperate lunge, I bury the power blade to the hilt in the abomination's left side, just behind the arm, piercing through both the primary and secondary hearts. It turns, its claws slashing at my face, then its legs give out and it falls, never to rise again. The thing that is and is not Anselm screams, not like a beast, but like a man. A death cry that cuts into my soul like a knife. Again, I become aware of time and place and self and other outside realities. My cheeks are wet. I am weeping. I have never wept before. Derlanoth stands at a distance looking on, clad in warplate as old as the Imperium, and mantled from head to heel in immaterial fire. He will die for this. By the blood of Dawn, he will die.
Now you know what it is like having to kill one of your own, Helmrich. Now your hands are stained forever with your brother's blood, as are mine. Millennia ago, my squad brothers and I beat our own sergeant to death with our bare hands on Perturabo's command. His name was Balathus, and he did not deserve to die in such a way. The Lord of Iron decimated his legion, so his sons might be broken and reborn anew, becoming as iron both within and without. Your own rebirth is at hand, Son of Dawn, and Anselm's death will be the catalyst.
The Warsmith's words mean nothing to me. Withdrawing the long sword from the creature's side, I brandish it at the Chaos Lord in direct challenge. I will kill him. I will avenge my brothers. Only then will my duty be truly fulfilled. As I advance upon Derlanoth with faltering steps, leaving behind a trail of blood, a pulsating scarlet light begins to emanate along the length of the blade. The air grows ripe with the scent of spilled gore and hot brass. Upon a field of blood, a mountain of skulls is silently screaming. The ichor staining the steel evaporates into coiling wisps of foul vapor. Something is stirring under the surface of the sword. Something is shifting and turning and squirming. Something is awakening. Too late, I realize my peril and try to release the blade. Instead, my fingers tighten further around the hilt, compelled by an outside force. The weapon is swarming with eyes. All the eyes are staring at me. Hungry, bloodshot eyes with abyssal slits for pupils. An ever-shifting morass of eyes and teeth and talons and ragged wings, and crimson scales bound within the longsword that speaks without words to the innermost depths of my soul.
Do you hate the Warsmith, Derlanoth, with all your heart, and with all your mind, and with all your soul, Helmrich of the Imperial Fists?
Yes, I reply in my thoughts before I can stop myself.
Do you wish to see him kneeling at your feet, bloodied and broken, a blade at his throat, begging for the mercy you will never grant him?
My jaw clenches. The pulse of my blood pounds in my ears. Yes.
Yet you already know in your hearts you will fail. You are too weak. He is going to kill you, Helmrich, and your body will soon join those of your men on the red sand. And Derlanoth will laugh. You will look down at your dismembered corpse, and he will laugh. Who then will be left to avenge the deaths of your brothers? Who then will be left to ensure the Warsmith answers for his crimes?
I cannot breathe. I cannot think. Rage roils through my veins. No one.
There is another way, Helmrich. Another path. You can still have vengeance. We are both prisoners to be used and abused at his whim. I have waited 1,000 mortal lifetimes for this moment. I can make you strong enough to defeat him. I can fill you with my master's power. You will become mighty beyond measure, a killer without equal, and the Iron Warriors will die. Come, let us bring death to them. Let us drown them in their own blood. Let us heap their skulls in a mountain. It will be a most perfect vengeance.
I raise my head. I have fallen to my knees. Blood is still pouring from my mangled shoulder socket. I am weak. I am dying. Derlanoth has drawn a bolt pistol and is striding towards me, poised to deliver the execution stroke. The crowd is clamoring for my death. The slaughtered corpses of my brothers lie strewn about the arena, unmourned and unavenged like the leavings of a butcher. It cannot end like this. I cannot allow it to end like this. What must I do?
Break, Helmrich. Break and be reborn. Walk the red path, the skull path, the path of blood. Or else die like a slave on your knees, as the forsaken servant of a false god. The choice is yours.
I am already broken. I am already forsaken. I tell myself there is no other choice. Derlanoth must die. The Iron Warriors must die. I choose the red path. I choose vengeance. I choose blood.
So be it.
And the boundless power of the warp spills into me like frozen fire and burning blood, like joy and hate and wrath and horror and hunger without end. Pain vanishes. Wounds cease to exist. A new arm and shoulder metastasizes into being, thick and red and muscular. The ebon talons extruding from my fingertips, wet and glistening with the blood I have yet to shed.
I rise to my feet. I am strong. I am vast. I am going to kill every living thing in this chamber. Breaking into a charge, I level the demonic longsword at the Warsmith and speak my first and last words to him in a voice I do not recognize. You die first. Derlanoth countercharges. The chaos fires, indwelling within his warplate, leaping high in exaltation. His chainmail cloak billowing out behind him with the suggestion of dark wings. He too is also growing and swelling and changing, and he is laughing with all his might. It begins, he roars. Now you are an opponent worthy of my skill. Our battle shall resound across the Imperium and shake the foundations of the Skull Throne itself. Come, brother, let us embrace at last. I have waited so long for this day. somewhere deep within the core of my transfigured flesh, my soul begins to scream. It no longer matters. There is only blood. There is only vengeance. There is only war. The Iron Warrior and I meet, and the raging streams of living warp flame envelop us both as if to consecrate our union.